My name is Anya, and I was born under a wide and silent sky in a place that felt like the middle of nowhere. My family's farm was a patch of ordered green against a vast golden prairie. My childhood was measured in seasons and soil and the gentle lowing of cattle. I learned the rhythm of hard work before I learned my alphabet. My father was a man of few words, and my mother was a woman of endless, quiet strength. We did not talk about feelings, very much we talked about chores and the weather and making sure the tractor was running. I thought my life was mapped out for me as clearly as the rows of corn I would help plant every spring. I would marry a local boy, I would take over part of the family land, I would raise children who would run through the same fields I did. That was the script, and for a long time I never thought to question it. The first crack in that script appeared when I was 17 years old. It was not a dramatic event, it was a whisper. A visiting teacher came to our high school to talk about college and opportunities in the cities. She spoke of architecture and literature and political science. She used words like potential and horizon, and they felt different from the words I knew. They felt like a key turning in a lock I did not know existed inside me. I went home that day and looked at my hands. They were good, strong hands, capable of milking cows and baling hay. But I suddenly wondered if they were also capable of drawing blueprints or writing stories or casting a vote that mattered beyond our county line. I did not dare to speak this wondering aloud. I married Mark the summer after I turned 20, just as everyone expected. He was the son of a neighboring farmer, a handsome man with a solid handshake and a good reputation. Our wedding was a community event held in the Grange Hall, filled with casseroles and well wishes and the smell of fresh hay. For the first few years, I poured myself into the role of farmer's wife. I kept the books for the farm, I managed our home, I planted a large vegetable garden. Mark was not unkind, but he was distant like the horizon on a hazy day. Our conversations were about fertilizer prices and roof repairs and whose turn it was to go to the feed store. The quiet in our house was not a peaceful quiet, it was a heavy quiet filled with all the things we never said. The longing I had felt in high school did not disappear, it just went underground. It would surface at the oddest moments. I would be hanging laundry on the line, and a line of poetry I had memorized long ago would run through my mind. I would see a photograph of a city skyline in a magazine, and my heart would give a strange little lurch. I began to secretly borrow books from the tiny town library, anything I could get my hands on: history books, travelogues, biographies of women who had done things. I read them hidden in the pantry or late at night in bed with a flashlight. Those books were my lifeline to a world I was told was not for people like me. Then I got pregnant, and for a time that longing transformed into anticipation. I poured all my silent yearning into preparing for my daughter. Sarah was born on a crisp autumn morning, and she was perfect. Her tiny fingers curled around mine with a trust that stole my breath. In her eyes, I saw a universe of possibility. I promised her in whispers as I rocked her to sleep that her life would be bigger, that her dreams would be heard. But as she grew, my own world seemed to shrink further. The farm hit a difficult period, years of poor prices and bad weather. The weight of responsibility and silence grew heavier. Mark became more withdrawn, the lines of worry on his face etching themselves permanently. One Tuesday afternoon when Sarah was 4, everything changed. I was in the grocery store in our small town. Sarah was in the cart chattering about the colors of the cereal boxes. A woman a few feet away from us was speaking to her friend in a low, urgent voice. She was saying the name of a local man, a respected man from a good family. She was saying words like "hurt me" and told me not to tell, and no one would believe me. Her friend was shushing her, looking around nervously. Our eyes met for a second. Hers were wide with fear and shame and a desperate hope that someone had heard. In that frozen moment, I saw not just her, but myself and my mother and every woman I knew who had swallowed a story to keep the peace. A heat rose in my chest, a clarity so sharp it was painful. I walked over to her. My hands were trembling, but my voice was steady when I spoke. "I believe you," I said. Those 3 words hung in the air between the canned corn and the breakfast muffins. The woman whose name was Clara broke into quiet sobs right there in aisle 7. Her friend looked at me with a mix of shock and relief. I did not know what to do next, but I knew I could not unhear what I had heard. I could not go back to the silent world where such things were whispered and then buried. I gave Clara my phone number scribbled on the back of a receipt. I told her to call me if she wanted to talk. That night, I could not sleep. The image of Clara's face would not leave me. A storm was building inside me, a storm of all the stories I had ever swallowed, all the times I had stayed quiet to be polite, all the ways I had made myself small to fit the space allotted to me. I thought of Sarah asleep in her bed with her stuffed bunny. What would I tell her if one day she came to me with a story like Clara's? Would I tell her to be quiet, to not make a fuss, to protect a man's reputation? The answer was a roaring no that echoed in my very bones. Clara called me 2 days later. We met at a park 20 miles away where no one would know us. Over lukewarm coffee from a thermos, her story poured out. It was worse than I had imagined, involving not just assault but threats and a systematic campaign to make her doubt her own mind. She had gone to the sheriff, a cousin of the man who had hurt her, and had been gently but firmly turned away. She felt utterly alone. I listened for hours. I did not have any answers, but I had my belief, and I offered it to her without condition. "We must tell it again," I said. "We must tell it to someone who will listen." That was the beginning of a journey I never could have planned. Clara and I began to research. We drove to the state capitol, to the library there, and learned about the legal system and victims' rights. We found the name of an attorney in a city 3 hours away who specialized in such cases. We met with her in an office that felt both intimidating and safe. The attorney, Lisa, was a force of nature. She listened to Clara with a focused intensity. She explained the long, difficult road ahead, the likelihood of disbelief, the character attacks, the emotional toll. She looked at Clara and then at me. "Are you prepared for this?" she asked. Clara was crying, but she nodded. I reached over and held her hand. "We are prepared," I said, though I had never been more terrified in my life. Telling Mark was my next trial. I sat him down at our old kitchen table after Sarah was in bed. I told him about Clara. I told him I was going to help her. His face hardened with every word. "This is not our business, Anya," he said, his voice low and tight. "You will drag our name through the mud. You will make enemies of powerful people in this county. Think of the farm, think of Sarah." His words were practical, the words of a man who had spent his life trying to preserve what he had built. But they felt like a cage. "I am thinking of Sarah," I said. "I am thinking of the world she will grow up in. I cannot teach her to be quiet about what is wrong." He did not understand. The gulf between us that had always been there now had a name. The lawsuit was filed. It was a small article in the back of the local paper, but in our community it was an earthquake. The man Clara accused was a deacon at the church, a benefactor of the school. People we had known for years stopped waving when they passed our truck. I was asked politely to step down from my volunteer position at the library. My parents called, worried and confused. My father asked me why I had to get involved. My mother was silent on the phone, but later she sent me a card with a small amount of cash folded inside, and the words "for gas" written in her careful script. It was her way of saying she loved me even if she did not understand. The hardest day was when Sarah came home from kindergarten crying. A boy had told her mommy was a liar and a troublemaker. I held her small, shaking body and felt a fury so pure it was like a white-hot flame. I rocked her and wiped her tears. I told her that sometimes doing the right thing makes people upset. I told her that telling the truth is very important even when it is scary. I wondered if she was too young for such lessons, but the world had already brought the lesson to her doorstep. That night, I stared at my reflection in the dark kitchen window. Who did I think I was? Just a farmer's wife from nowhere trying to fight a giant. The doubt was a cold, heavy stone in my stomach. We pressed on. Clara's case was difficult. The defense attorney was brutal in his depositions, trying to pick apart her memory, her character, her every motive. I sat with her through every agonizing session. I took notes, I fetched water, I held her hand when she had to relive the worst moments. I learned more about the law than I ever thought possible. I also learned about the incredible network of quiet resilience among women. The wife of the town mechanic secretly paid for one of our hotel stays near the courthouse. A group of women from a church in the next county sent us a care package with homemade cookies and notes of support. We were not as alone as it sometimes felt. Then a remarkable thing happened. After a story about the case ran in a larger regional newspaper, another woman came forward. Then another. They had stories about the same man, stories that spanned decades. They had all been silenced by fear and shame and the certainty that no one would care. Our lonely fight was suddenly not lonely anymore. We were a small group huddled together in Lisa's office, finding strength in our shared truth. The case grew from a civil suit into something larger. The local district attorney, who had initially shown no interest, was now compelled to take a look. The giant did not seem so invincible anymore. The personal cost continued to mount. Mark and I existed in a cold war under the same roof. We spoke only of necessities. The farm was struggling, and some of our suppliers mysteriously found they could no longer do business with us. I took a part-time job as a remote bookkeeper for a small business I found online to help make ends meet and to pay for the travel for the case. I was exhausted all the time, stretched thinner than I knew was possible. I would fall into bed each night, my mind racing with legal strategies and grocery lists, and the look on Sarah's face when I had to leave for another trip. The criminal trial was a marathon of anguish. Sitting in that hard wooden bench day after day listening to the defense attack these brave women was a special kind of hell. I watched Clara's shoulders straighten with each assault on her credibility. I saw the jurors' faces shift from skepticism to dawning comprehension. I learned that courage is not the absence of fear, it is the decision that something else is more important than fear. On the day the verdict was read, I held the hands of the women on either side of me. Our knuckles were white. When the foreman said guilty, on all counts the air left the room for a second, then rushed back in on a wave of muffled sobs and stunned relief. There was no celebration, only a profound, deep exhaustion and a trembling sense that a terrible weight had finally been lifted. The aftermath was complicated. There was no magical restoration. The man went to prison, but his family and supporters in the community still blamed us for destroying a good man's life. Some relationships were fractured beyond repair. My marriage did not survive. The silence between Mark and me had become a wall we could not scale. We divorced with a quiet dignity that was the last of our shared language. He kept the farm. Sarah and I moved to a small rented house in a nearby town. I was starting over at 34 with a daughter to support and a reputation as an agitator. But I was also starting over with a self I recognized, a voice I had found and refused to lose again. Using the skills I had honed during the trial and my remote bookkeeping work, I started a tiny consulting business, helping other small women-owned businesses with their books and legal logistics. Word of mouth spread. Women sought me out not just for my number crunching, but for my understanding. A year after the trial, Lisa, the attorney, called me. There is a nonprofit, she said. They work with survivors of assault in rural areas. They need a community liaison, someone who knows the land, the people, the particular silence of these places. Someone who can be a bridge between the law and the kitchen table. They want to know if you are interested. I looked around my modest little living room at Sarah drawing quietly at the table. I thought of Clara and the other women. I thought of the long, lonely roads and the isolated farmhouses where someone might be holding a terrible secret. I knew my answer. Today I drive those roads for a living. My job is to listen, to believe, and to help navigate the path toward healing and sometimes justice. I walk into homes much like the one I grew up in, and I see the fear in a woman's eyes and I recognize it. I tell her my story, not all of it, but enough. I tell her I am from here too. I tell her I believe you. Those 3 words are still the most powerful ones I know. Sometimes they are met with tears, sometimes with suspicion, sometimes with a life-changing wave of relief. Sarah is 12 now. She is fierce and compassionate. She has seen her mother broken and rebuilt. She knows the cost of speaking up and the deeper cost of silence. We talk about everything. Her world is already bigger than mine was at her age, not because we have more money, we do not, but because her horizon of what is possible for a woman is boundless. She wants to be a lawyer or a writer or sometimes a farmer who also writes books. I tell her she can be all of those things. My own life is not a fairy tale. It is messy and often lonely and financially precarious. I still have moments of doubt where I wonder if I did the right thing to tear my life apart. But then I get a call. I drive out to a farm on the edge of the prairie. I sit at a kitchen table, and a woman hands me a cup of coffee, her hands shaking. She begins to speak, her voice barely a whisper. I lean forward and I listen. In her eyes, I see the reflection of my own past fear and a flicker of hope. I am no longer just Anya, the farmer's wife. I am a witness, a guide, a holder of stories. My bravery was not a single grand act, but a series of small choices to listen to that still small voice inside me and to answer it one whispered truth at a time. The prairie sky is still wide, but my world is no longer silent, and in that sound and the voices of the women who speak and are finally heard, I have found my true home. But before we continue, I want to extend a very specially invitation to you: subscribe the channel and leave a like. This helps me see that you support me and enjoy my stories, and comment down below which city you are watching us from right now. Let's continue. The days now have a different rhythm than the farm days ever did. My alarm goes off in the dark, not to feed livestock, but to pack a bag for a day that could take me anywhere across 3 counties. I make Sarah's lunch, and we eat breakfast together in our small, sunny kitchen. We talk about her homework, about her friends, about the book she is reading. These morning moments are my anchor, the quiet eye in the storm of my work. I drop her at school, and then I point my car toward the highway. The landscape unfolds familiar and endless. I know these roads by heart, every dip and curve, every grain elevator standing sentinel against the sky. I drive, and I think about the woman I am going to meet. Her name might be Ellen. She might be a waitress at a diner in a town of 800 people. She might have called the hotline number she saw on a flyer at the women's restroom at the gas station. Her voice on the phone was so quiet I had to press the receiver hard against my ear. She said she was not sure if she should be calling. She said it was probably nothing. I told her nothing is ever nothing if it is bothering you. We set a time to meet at a park bench outside the tiny public library. I arrive early. I sit and watch the town move at its slow pace. A farmer trucks by. An old man walks his dog. Everything looks peaceful. I know better now. I know that peace can be a mask. Ellen arrives. She is younger than I expected, maybe in her early 20s. Her hands are clasped tightly in her lap. She cannot look at me directly at first. She talks about the weather, about how slow the diner has been. I let the silence sit between us. I do not rush her. I learned that from Lisa the attorney and from my own heart. Silence is not always an enemy. Sometimes it is the space where truth gathers the courage to emerge. Finally, she takes a ragged breath. "It is my uncle," she says. Her story is different in the details, but achingly familiar in its contours. The abuse of trust, the manipulation, the isolation, the fear that speaking will shatter her family and leave her with nothing and no one. I listen, I nod. I make sure my body language is open and not judging. When she finishes a torrent of words that leaves her trembling, I reach into my bag. I do not reach for a form or a pamphlet first. I reach for a tissue. I hand it to her. "Thank you for telling me," I say. "That took tremendous courage. I believe you." The words hang in the air. She finally looks at me, her eyes searching mine for deception, for pity. She finds neither. She finds a steady belief as solid as the earth beneath this bench. "What do I do now?" she whispers. That is when my real work begins. We talk options. We talk about safety planning first and always. Is she living with him? Does she have a friend she can stay with? We talk about counseling. There is a therapist in the city who does telehealth appointments. I can give her the number. We talk about the legal path. I explain what reporting might look like, the good and the brutal. I tell her about Clara. I tell her she is not alone. I am not here to tell her what to do. I am here to lay out the tools she has at her disposal and to walk beside her as she decides which ones to pick up. Empowerment is not about taking charge of someone else's life. It is about handing them back the map to their own. Sometimes the meeting ends with a plan. Sometimes it ends with Ellen saying she needs to think. Sometimes it ends with her shoulders slumping in relief just for having spoken the words aloud to another human being who did not flinch or blame her. I give her my card with my cell number on it. "Call me anytime," I say. Day or night. I mean it. I drive away from that town, my heart heavy but also full. The weight is the weight of her story now entrusted to me. The fullness is from the privilege of being the one she chose to tell. Not every story has a clear or happy ending. I worked with a woman named Marie for almost 2 years. She was in her 60s, and the abuse came from her husband of 40 years. It was not physical, it was a slow, crushing psychological prison. She wanted out, but she was terrified. She had no money of her own, no job skills. Her entire identity was as his wife. We met weekly at a coffee shop. We worked on a secret savings plan, stashing away grocery money. I helped her update a decades-old resume. We practiced for job interviews. The day she got a part-time job at a fabric store, she called me crying with happiness. It was minimum wage, but to her it was a lifeline to a self she had forgotten. She rented a small apartment. The day she moved out, she said she felt like she could breathe for the first time in decades, but her husband fought the divorce bitterly. The legal process was draining and cruel. She grew thin and tired. One day she called me. She was going back. I could not stop the tears that sprang to my eyes. I failed, I thought. I drove to her apartment. She was packing a suitcase. Anya, she said, you did not fail. Because of you, I know I can leave. I just cannot do it right now. But I know I can. That knowledge is because of you. It was a lesson in humility. My job is not to be the hero of someone else's story. My job is to be a faithful companion in the chapters they are living right now. Sarah grows and changes alongside my work. She is 13 now and full of fierce opinions. She helps me organize my supply closet full of brochures and donated toiletries for women who have to leave in a hurry. She calls it the Hope Closet. She sees the toll the work takes on me. Some nights I come home and I am just quiet. The stories sit with me. She has learned to bring me a cup of tea and sit with me, not asking questions, just being present. She has learned a compassion that is deep and wordless. One night she said, "Mom, your work is sad, but it is the most important work in the world. You are turning whispers into echoes that other people can hear." I cried then. My daughter understood it better than I did. My relationship with my parents has changed slowly, like a glacier moving. My father still does not quite understand, but he respects my stubbornness. He sends me articles from the farm journal he thinks might interest me. My mother calls me every Sunday. She does not ask about the details of my work, but she asks how I am holding up. She tells me she is proud of me. She says it in her roundabout way. I was talking to Mabel at church, she will say. She said her niece in Potter County met with a very kind woman from an advocacy group. She said it made all the difference. I think that might have been you. You always did have a listening heart. That is her version of a Medal of Honor. I have made a new community. It is not the geographical community of my childhood. It is a scattered tribe of survivors and advocates and believers. Lisa, the attorney, is a close friend now. We have long dinners where we debrief and vent and dream of systemic change. Clara is doing well. She moved to another state, went back to school, and is now a social worker herself. We talk on the phone every few months. Her laugh is a sound of pure joy, a sound I never heard in those early days. The other women from the case, we have a private online group. We check in on each other. We share pictures of our kids, our vacations, our small victories. We are bound by a terrible history, but we have chosen to make that bond a source of strength, not shame. There are still dangers. The man I helped put away has family who still live in the area. I have been followed a few times on lonely rural roads. My tires were slashed once outside a motel where I was meeting a client. I reported it, but nothing came of it. It was a reminder. The silence I fight is not passive. It is an active force that protects powerful people, and it does not give up its power willingly. I have learned precautions. I vary my routes. I always let someone know where I am going and when I expect to be back. I carry a phone charger and a fierce determination. The fear is still there, but it is a familiar companion now. I acknowledge it and I keep driving. The work has also changed me in practical ways. I went back to school online. I got a certificate in crisis counseling and trauma-informed care. I sit on the board of a state coalition against domestic violence. I have testified before the state legislature twice to advocate for better funding for rural services. The first time I had to speak, I was petrified. I looked out at the rows of mostly male faces and my mouth went dry. I thought of Ellen and Marie and Clara. I thought of Sarah. I took a sip of water and I began. My voice did not shake. I spoke of the distances. I spoke of the isolation. I spoke of the particular brand of shame that thrives in small towns where everyone knows your name. I spoke not as an expert, but as a witness. We did not get all the funding we asked for, but we got some. It was a start. My life is a tapestry now woven with many different threads. There is the thread of deep sorrow for the pain I witness daily. There is the thread of fierce joy in my daughter's growth. There is the thread of solid friendship with the women who walk this path with me. There is the thread of weary frustration with a system that is still so broken. There is the thread of profound hope that springs up every time a woman finds her voice. These threads are tangled and knotted sometimes. They are also strong. They hold me. I think often of that young woman. I was hanging laundry on the line, dreaming of a bigger world. I thought the bigger world was somewhere else in a city far away. I was wrong. The biggest world I have ever found was right here in the heart of this prairie, in the hearts of the women I meet. Their courage, their resilience, their slow, stubborn healing, these are the most expansive things I have ever known. I did not need to cross an ocean to find a meaningful life. I needed to dive deep into the truth of my own community. The phone rings again. It is a referral from a hospital 2 counties over. A woman was brought into the ER. She gave them my name. "Can you come?" they ask. I look at the clock. I will have to ask my neighbor to get Sarah from soccer practice. I text her and she replies immediately. "Of course, Anya. Take all the time you need. This network, this web of support, it holds me too." I grab my bag. I kiss Sarah's photo on the fridge. I head out the door. The sun is setting, painting the prairie in shades of gold and purple. I drive toward the horizon. I'm not afraid of the dark anymore. I know that even in the darkest night, there are other women awake holding their own lights. We are a constellation scattered across this vast land. We are not always visible to each other, but we are always there. Our stories are the stars that guide us. My story is just one. It began with a whisper in a grocery store aisle. It became a voice that now speaks in courtrooms and legislative halls and quiet kitchens. It is a voice that always begins with the same 3 words: "I believe you." And in speaking them to others, I finally learned to believe in myself. The journey is not over. The road still unfolds before me, but I am no longer just walking it. I am helping to pave it for those who will come after. For Sarah. For all the daughters. That is the legacy of an ordinary, brave woman. It is a legacy built one whispered truth at a time. My work is not confined to crisis moments anymore. I have started holding small group meetings in church basements and community centers. We call them strength circles. They are not therapy groups, though healing happens there. They are simply places for women to gather and remember they are not the only ones. The first time I hosted one, only 2 women came. We sat in a circle of folding chairs in a room that smelled of old hymnals and floor polish. We were all nervous. I started by sharing a little of my story, not the legal battle, but the loneliness, the feeling of being trapped in a life that did not fit. One woman, then a grandmother named Beverly, began to talk about her marriage that had ended 30 years prior. She had never spoken of the real reasons to anyone. She spoke, and the other woman, a young teacher named Chloe, listened, then shared her own story of workplace harassment she had endured. They were from different generations, but their pain spoke the same language. By the end of the 2 hours, Beverly held Chloe's hand. "You are so brave, dear," she said. "You are both so brave," I said. The circle had held us. Now those circles happen monthly in 4 different towns. Sometimes we just talk. Sometimes we bring in a yoga instructor to teach breathing techniques for anxiety. Sometimes we share job leads and childcare swaps. We are building a new kind of community, stitch by careful stitch. Sarah is 15 now. She has her learner's permit. She drives with me on long, straight county roads practicing for her test. We talk about everything in that car. She asks me hard questions about my work. "Why do men do these things, Mom? Why do women stay?" I do not have perfect answers. I tell her about power and control. I tell her about fear and economic dependency. I tell her about love that gets twisted into something ugly. I tell her most of all, it is not about why they stay, it is about how we can make it possible for them to leave. She processes this, silently watching the telephone poles whip by. Then she says, "I think it is about making sure girls never think it is normal in the first place." My brilliant girl. She is already thinking about prevention while I am still deep in the trenches of intervention. She gives me hope for the next generation. My own healing is an ongoing process. I found a therapist for myself, a wise woman named Dr. Rhodes, who specializes in secondary trauma. I see her every other week via video chat. At first, I thought I did not need it. I am the helper, not the one who needs help. But the stories were accumulating inside me like stones in a pocket. I was carrying too much weight. Dr. Rhodes taught me to unpack that pocket stone by stone. She taught me to recognize the signs when I am taking on too much, when the line between compassion and enmeshment blurs. She taught me that to care for others, I must first care for the vessel that carries the care. It is not selfish, it is sustainable. I have learned to set boundaries. I do not answer the crisis line after 9 p.m. unless it is a dire emergency. I take a weekend off every month just for Sarah and me. We go camping, sometimes just to be under that big silent sky again. But now it feels peaceful, not oppressive. The advocacy work has taken on new dimensions. I helped develop a training program for rural law enforcement. It was an uphill battle. There was skepticism in those rooms full of uniformed men, many of whom I knew viewed me as a nuisance, a troublemaker. I started the training not with statistics, but with a story. I told them about Clara, about going to the sheriff who was a cousin. I asked them to imagine their own sister or daughter in that situation. Would they want the first responder to believe her or to doubt her? I saw some shifts in posture, some thoughtful nods. We role-played responding to a domestic call. We talked about the nuances of coercive control, which leaves no visible bruises. We are not best friends now, but there is a respectful dialogue. The sheriff in the next county over actually called me for advice on a case last month. That felt like a victory as significant as any court verdict. I also started writing. It began as a personal journal, a way to process the emotional toll. Then Lisa read a few pages. "You need to share this," she said. So I started a blog anonymously at first. I called it Prairie Truths. I wrote about the landscape of silence. I wrote about the courage in a woman's eyes when she decides to speak. I wrote about the practicalities, like how to create a safety plan or what to pack in a go bag. I never used real names or identifying details. The blog found an audience. Women from rural areas all over the country wrote to me. They said they felt seen for the first time. They said my words gave them the courage to seek help. One woman from a ranch in Wyoming wrote that reading my blog was like having a friend in the next room when she felt utterly alone. That is when I realized my voice, my story, could travel far beyond the miles I could drive. The written word became another tool in my toolbox. My relationship with Mark has settled into a distant but functional co-parenting rhythm. He is a good father to Sarah in his own way. He provides stability and a connection to her roots on the land. She spends every other weekend and part of the summer on the farm. She comes back smelling of hay and sunshine. She tells me about fixing fences with her dad, about the new calves. She needs that connection to her history too. Mark and I speak only about Sarah's schedule and needs. The old hurts are buried too deep to excavate. There is no friendship there, but there is a mutual respect forged in the fire of our shared love for our daughter. I can live with that. I think about love sometimes. I am only in my early 40s. My life is full of purpose, and my heart is full of love for Sarah and my friends and my work. But there is a quiet space in my life where a romantic partnership might fit. It is not a longing, it is just a curiosity. I went on a few dates set up by well-meaning friends. They were nice men, but they wanted to talk about normal things: movies, sports, their jobs. My work is not a normal topic for dinner conversation. It changes the atmosphere. One man, a kind, divorced farmer much like Mark, looked at me with pity when I told him what I did. "That must be so depressing," he said. I realized I do not want to be with someone who sees my life's work as a source of depression. I want someone who sees it as a source of strength. That person has not appeared yet. I'm not waiting. I am living. If he comes, he will have to understand that my life is already spoken for in many profound ways. The seasons still turn. I feel them more acutely now, perhaps because I am not tied to the land for my survival. I notice the first red tinge on the sumac leaves in the fall. I see the brave green shoots pushing through the thawing mud in spring. The cycles of nature remind me of the cycles of healing. There is a time for dormancy, for resting and gathering strength underground. There is a time for fierce, explosive growth. There is a time for harvest, for gathering the fruits of hard labor. And there is always inevitably a time for letting go, for the fall and the rest before the cycle begins again. The women I work with are in different seasons. My job is to help them recognize which season they are in and to assure them the next one will come. I think about my legacy not in a grandiose way, but in a practical one. What will I leave behind? It will not be land or money. It will be a model. It will be the strength circles that I hope will continue without me. It will be the training protocols for law enforcement. It will be the words in my blog. It will be Sarah and the woman she is becoming. It will be the hundreds of women who heard the words, "I believe you," and who then in time learned to believe in themselves. That is a harvest I never could have imagined when I was a girl dreaming under that endless sky. The work is never done. For every woman who finds safety, another is just beginning her nightmare. The phone still rings. The calls still come. I still get into my car and drive toward the pain because I know that on the other side of that pain is the possibility of liberation. I am no longer an amateur. I am a professional. I have protocols and partners and a support network, but the core of it remains the same as it was in that grocery store aisle. It is about one human being turning to another and offering the simple, profound gift of belief. It is about looking into the eyes of someone who has been told they are nothing and reflecting back to them their inherent worth. My name is, I was a farmer's wife. I'm a mother. I'm an advocate. I'm a witness. I'm a woman who once lived in silence and who now uses her voice to shatter silences for others. My story is ordinary in its beginnings. It is extraordinary in its unfolding. It is a story of bravery that was not a sudden leap, but a slow, steady walk out of the dark and into the light. It is a story for every woman who has ever wondered if her voice matters. It does. It is a story for every person who has ever heard a whisper and wondered if they should speak it aloud. You should. This is my truth. This is my life. It is a good life. It is a hard life. It is a life I would choose again in a heartbeat. I am driving. I am listening. I am believing. I am here.